Morning, everybody. It's Friday, September the 2nd, 10 a.m. Meeting. I'd like to have Mr. Falk say the pledge and Mr. DuPont say the prayer, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recite the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank y'all. I'd like to remind everybody, please turn your phones down. We'll move on to item number 3. Shubham Datta, National Audubon Society Senior Conservation Director. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I did.
That was perfect.
Okay, good.
How y'all doing today?
We're
Y'all know
good.
me, Katie Barnes with the National Audubon Society. I just wanted to give a little nesting update and introduce Shubham. Our nesting activity is almost over. We have some really exciting news, and I know a lot of Holly Beach residents are aware of it. But we do have nesting black skimmers again for the 2nd year in a row, and they did have some success, and we actually have 2 chicks out there that are about to take flight for the very first time. So I'm going to confirm that this morning. But I saw them yesterday, and they look really good and very exciting. They were just on the west side of Holly Beach, and they're very rare nesters on the mainland beaches. They're usually out on the offshore islands, and so it's really exciting to have them join us on our beaches, and we had a lot of community support behind it, and they picked a really bad location to nest. And despite all of that, we had a lot of support from the community, and we were able to get those birds off the ground, so very exciting. But without further ado, I wanted to introduce Shubham Datta. He is our new Senior Conservation Director for the National Audubon Society's Audubon Delta Regional Office. So he's just going to introduce himself today and let you all know what's going on with Audubon.
Good morning, everyone, members of the jury and the public audience. I'm Shubham Datta. I'm the new Senior Director of Conservation for Audubon Delta, which is Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas together. I'm here to show our support to the community, with the community, our investment to the community. Audubon has been supporter of birds for a long time, and that's how you know Audubon. More recently, we are investing into restoration, we are investing into people and communities. And that's the message for me here is we are here to work with you, we are here to work with the community, we are invested in it. There are several coastal restoration programs that we are working for. There are also several grants that we are working towards with communities to bring coastal resilience, to build up the natural infrastructure that helps coastal communities. And my hope is to work more closely with this community that we have been working for several years, and just to show our presence here and show our support with and to the community here. There are several projects that in the recent years, the last 1 or 2 years that we have started restoration project-wise, and there are several grants that are also available out there to work on natural infrastructure. We would be gladly working with you and submit those grants to get more restoration dollars to the coast, to our Southwest Louisiana. So that's all I had to say here, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to take them now.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, Dee Dee, you wanna come up here, please? Okay, I got a little thing I want to read to you right now. On Friday, July the 8th, Delia D.D. Sanders, Director of Cameron Parish Library, was awarded the S.A.M. Culver Distinguished Service Award at the Louisiana Library Association Conference. This is one of the organization's highest awards and honors as a librarian whose professional service and achievements, whose leadership in Louisiana Association work, and whose lifetime accomplishments in the field of librarianship within the state merit recognition of particular value of the Louisiana librarianship. We'd also like to recognize you for your hard work and thank you for everything you do for Cameron Parish libraries and communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Couldn't do it without y'all.
You want to say something? Well, at least we got you up here in front of everybody. Temporary food truck ordinance.
I guess I'll do that one. So it's set to expire tomorrow. Y'all extended it, it's been in place since September 2020, and y'all been extending it for 6 months. I think the last time y'all said as long as they were working towards a permanent establishment, or we discussed that in the past also. There is one working towards a permanent solution right now. He's fixing it, they're gonna rent lease the Old Dollar General, okay? The other was gonna go in with them. We only got 2 in Cameron, so I know the state, health department, they said to the end of the year, then they're gonna have to quit. They're gonna have to have a commissary. So, we recommend extending it for 6 months. We got one working towards it, and the other one, she's not sure, so.
So we're talking before January 1st, they have.
Yeah, by the end of the year, the health department said I got December 12th written down.
Oh, by December 12th?
Right.
But we'll go for them, I guess. Go to December 12th.
Extend it till whenever.
Until the end of the year. And
Yeah,
I think
till the end of the year.
by then, they're gonna have their commissaries or whatever to operate.
Okay, so
So-
we'll extend it to the end of the year.
It's on the voting meeting, it just doesn't have a date, so I'll add, December 31st.
Thank you.
Yes.
Shane, price increase for security bond?
Yes, sir. Currently, they're $75 a linear square foot. I'm gonna move it up to $150 a square. Means a price increase on fuel and materials for contractors.
This hasn't been increased since Laura.
11
Oh, no,
years.
Rita,
11 years.
Yeah.
11 years?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was put in effect 2007.
Now, this doesn't affect any of our residents building houses or nothing like that. This
Just
is for,
roads for
this
contractors.
is, yeah, right, this is for contractors that's working in all field or doing different
Tearing
things
up
with
the
heavy
roads.
loads over 10 tons, tearing up our roads. And we probably need to adjust it for the times.
Is that enough?
For now.
You figured it is, so that's good.
There it is for now.
He can come back, yes, sir.
Okay.
This does not have to go on the voting meeting because the ordinance reads that the amount is set by the road and bridge superintendent. We just want it on record that it is going up from $75 to $150.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, insurance quotes?
That's me. Good morning.
Morning.
How are y'all today? We have one that looks like this. Okay. So this is a quote from Louisiana Agencies and Gallagher for our equipment, which is actually renews on the 7th. So I am recommending that we move our equipment to Gallagher, Mr. Butler. And the other ones that we have listed, we have quotes coming in now. They're not due till the 15th. So we are going to ask later to give Katie the authority to sign those whenever they come in to renew on the 15th. We want to, because we won't have a meeting before the, October, and we want to be able to do that to make sure that we get all of our insurance covered. Mr. Butler and Gallagher have been helping us with doing some risk assessment for all of our policies And we have been coming across some things that need to be fine-tuned with laws and other things that are changing. So I just want to let you know we're working on making sure everybody's covered the way they need to be. I just would like for y'all to go ahead and approve this one today and give Katie permission to do sign the other ones when they come in September, by September the 15th. Because that's when the other.
Because I was on the understanding, and that's just probably something I had missed. I thought we had moved everything, and you're
No,
saying
sir.
that we only moved part of it.
Yes, sir. In February, we moved all of our buildings. And
Okay.
so that was all the policies for the wind coverage, flood coverage, just our buildings. Everything else doesn't renew until September the 5th. Well, this one's on September the 7th, but usually in the month of September. So those are the ones that we are covering now. We didn't want to break those policies in midstream. We wanted to let them finish out and then make it fresh.
Okay, well, looking at this right here, the only thing that I see that's really a really big change is deductible flood is when.
You want to address that?
Right, so
Come right here.
Good morning. The IAT program does have a $5,000 flood deductible for the occurrence of flood, of the incidents. But they also provide an additional 10% over the value that you have listed for your equipment, because used equipment is actually not more expensive now. So they're sort of giving you a margin, a 10% margin, that if you had a $10,000 piece of equipment that was damaged, it would actually give you $11,000 to help replace it. So there's an advantage to the policy that we have enforced, but their flood deductible is $5,000.
But this is just on equipment. So, I mean, most of our equipment gets taken out anyway.
Sure.
But this is just what this policy's for.
Okay, all right. Anybody, any more
Anybody got
questions?
any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public comment for, was it batch demo of PPDR condemnation properties?
And part of the process for the PPDR, we had to actually do our condemnation ordinance and condemn these structures. It's part of PPDR. They're gonna clean this. It's gonna get paid for through them, through the government. And part of the process is we condemn them, and today's a public hearing if they wanna say something about it. So I don't know if anybody's here.
Okay,
They shouldn't have been. We've contacted all the people of what's gonna happen.
Okay. Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, so guys, this is unusual proceeding for us, that we have a condemnation. It's the addendum, so would technically, is the public hearing set for 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock? When are they gonna vote to technically condemn these?
10.
they're
They're
gonna,
gonna vote this evening, but at the
They're gonna
hearing's right now.
vote.
So the hearing's now.
Yeah.
So for the record, we need to identify each person, okay, and the idea, gentlemen, I think we've talked about this, if you're not aware of, fill you in order for us to use public funds to go onto private property, we're gonna be reimbursed through FEMA is what we expect. We've tried to dot our I's exactly right, and cross our T's exactly right to get reimbursed. But for us even to spend money, we had to go through the condemnation process. So you, as a public body, can condemn properties and then tear them down, get rid of them. That's your legal right, and you can use public monies to do that. So that's what we're doing here. We're going through that legal process so that we can condemn the buildings, tear them down, improve the neighborhoods and the communities. And these people are agreeing to this, so it's not adversarial type situation where we're doing it against their will, because they've applied for this program. Again, just informing you and the public what's happening, because this is unusual for us to take this extreme measure, but it's necessary that we do this in this fashion. So that's why we're doing. So Mary's gonna, for the record, so we can, again, dot our I's exactly and cross the T's nicely for FEMA in the future to get reimbursed. You'll identify the owners, the properties, and notice, and see if anybody's here to comment on each of these properties. I don't expect there are any, but again, this is just part of the process and procedure. So.
But have all these individuals signed a document stating that they're in with the program?
Yes.
They had to submit an application.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, we may at some point deal with properties, on our own accord without FEMA reimbursement that may need to be condemned for the benefit of the public, that aren't part of this program. But for now, our intention is only to deal with those property owners who have
In agreement.
applied, agreed, and are, willing to do this, so.
Real quick, that list is gonna be everybody who's applied.
No,
Yes, sir.
this is just the first,
The first
12.
one, yeah, it's batch one.
We have not refused any. Yet. Am I correct?
well,
Some did not qualify for the program.
Yeah.
Once they've qualified, these are the ones that's thus far ready to go. Everything's been met. Last month, we went over these for y'all to accept to send the letters. The letters have been sent. This is the second step.
so there's still more to come, but if you have a resident that did not qualify, because they submitted an application for whatever reason, they were notified they did not qualify for reasons A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z. I don't know the details of your staffing, but if you have somebody in that position that for some reason didn't qualify, the staff can give you that more details, in private.
And just so y'all know, we're gonna be adding 12 more, it'll be batch two. It's on the vote, so we're gonna add 12 more.
I guess before you read those names out, I got a question, if y'all don't mind. We picked a contractor yet to do this work?
No, sir. The motion this afternoon is going to read pending the, RFQ procurement and contract being signed.
I have some locals that's interested in, applying for some of this work.
Hi, Tanisha Bates with HGA. So right now for your demo batches, we are working on the RFP for your advertisement so that you can post it so you can procure for your contractor for the demolition properties. For those persons whose properties were considered ineligible by FEMA, those properties owners were notified that their properties were deemed ineligible. And our solution to that, in hopes of getting FEMA to change the determination, is to send out our structural engineer who will do a structural assessment on that property to determine if it is rack warped or plumb. If it is, then we send that assessment back over to FEMA and we get them to overturn that decision and the property becomes eligible. In the event that that does not happen because the assessment determined that there was other structural ability, then our fight is a little more intense in getting them to change that ineligible property.
Okay. I was concerned about the contractors that's gonna actually do the work.
Okay.
Demoing these houses and to make sure they're in the loop and nobody's left out.
What do you mean in the loop?
Well, I mean, you're gonna procure a contractor, right?
Right, yes, sir.
And that's gonna be public.
Public bid.
We're gonna do it, we're gonna put it out.
Yeah.
They writing it up for us and we're gonna put it out, so.
Okay, I just don't wanna
If you
miss
have
out.
If you have a contractor that's interested, Katie or Danny,
Okay, that's what
and they'll make sure they get an email of that request for proposals so they can submit a proposal.
How does FEMA determine which ones is eligible and which ones are not? If they damage and they ain't no good, I mean.
So what parishes consider to be condemned doesn't necessarily meet all of FEMA's requirements for condemned. So you may have properties that they say no, but you still say yes, need to be condemned, and that means that that owner would have to demolish at their own expense. There's the only way FEMA says that they are truly eligible is that property has to be rack warped or plumb, meaning that the structural stability of that property has to be gone beyond repair.
What if the owner has something from FEMA saying it's 80% destroyed, and they have some engineers from the insurance company says it needs to be tore down, and then
So we do
FEMA
have-
comes back and says
No.
no.
Right. We do have some properties, unfortunately, that fall into that category. It's a fine line because in one instance, in another pot of money, FEMA said, okay, yeah, it is a property that cannot be repaired or rebuilt. But for this program, the guidelines are a little more strict, and it just comes down to the actual structural ability of that, stability of that property. And when you submit that engineer's report, that specifically says, okay, yes, with dimensions, with pictures, and with a good description of what's missing or what's damaged or what can't be replaced, then they usually say, okay, eligible.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure, thank you all.
Mary?
Eric?
Mary?
Okay, so the following residents received letters stating there would be a public hearing today at 10 a.m. Dwayne Ezel, property location 150 Kathy Road, Lake Charles. Thomas DeBorge Jr., property location 197 Vincent Road, Lake Charles, Louisiana. These are in Grand Lake, y'all are aware of. Oscar and Peggy Reyes, 207 LaBeouf Road, Bell City, which is Sweet Lake. Teresa Mouton, 181 Bobby's Lane, Cameron. Richard W. Carter, 4872 Gulf Beach Highway, Cameron. Ernestina T. Horn, 711 Chenier Purdue Road, Creo. Gilbert L. Landry Estate, 4391 West Creo Highway, Creo. Peter Dalen, 1371 Little Chenier Road, Creo. Judith Holbrook, 5785 Grand Chenier Highway, Grand Chenier. Joseph C. Rena Jr., 1439 Oak Grove Highway, Grand Chenier. Dexter Harrison, 3355 Grand Chenier Highway, Grand Chenier. David LaFleur, 2893 Grand Chenier Highway, Grand Chenier. Alice Perez, 165 East Lane, Hackberry. And Mary Vincent, 1490 Horseshoe Lane, Hackberry.
Okay.
I have received no written communication for any, public comment on these properties.
I do have one question. What is the timeline of getting all this paperwork ready to go out for bids? What's the timeline on getting the paperwork ready for us to be able to go out for bids? If we're going out for bids, this may take 3 months to get all this.
So we're going to break down the batches, the demo properties into batches. So for each batch, we'll send out an RFP to procure for your contractor. So you'll get a chance to allow several different local contractors, if possible, to get the work. The RFP is just about ready, so I'll probably be sending it over to Danny and Katie by Tuesday of next week.
Okay.
And it's ready.
For this first batch?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's good.
Okay,
Close the public
huh?
Just close the public
Close.
Oh, yeah.
The public hearing needs to be closed.
Okay, hearing is closed. I guess that's all I gotta say. All right, number 9, no, we just did that one. No, that's a redistricting. Okay, number 9, presentation and public hearing on proposed redistricting for Cameron Parish Police Jury.
All right.
Kate Cole, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Members of the jury, we'll leave that there, but I'll go talk over there. All right.
Hey, you can, if you need to point out stuff, you can have this one too, if it's easier.
Oh, good. Well, I may come over there in a minute. I'll just give an overview first. So, at last month's meeting, we kind of went through a universe of options, kind of from, 11 all the way down to 5. And then we arranged for some feedback and some small groups from you guys. And based on that feedback, what it seemed like is it kind of boiled down to y'all wanting to look at a 5 and an 8. So we have a kind of a tweaked 5 and a tweaked 8 that we've done. In the presentation last month, I'd focused on what we had done 10 years ago, which is making a point to not cross the river. basically, as we saw then, as we saw with the school board map, as you know, we see through a lot of trial and error, if you choose not to cross the river, invariably your deviation is going to be outside of the safe harbor where you're automatically okay under federal law. So under federal law, we're trying to get to equal protection where people's votes are all relatively equal to each other. And the courts have said that if you're within plus 5% to minus 5% of what your target district equality should be, then that's a safe harbor range where nobody can question whether that, based on that basis, is a problem. So 10 years ago, the decision was made, we're going to be outside of that range. The parish was sued, and we settled that lawsuit, still being outside of that range, but narrowing it a little bit. This time, the feedback that I got from a number of y'all is, hey, let's at least take a look at something that gets within that range, that puts it beyond any question of possible litigation. Now, to do that, you will have to have a district cross the river. So that's basically what we have here. So the 5, I'll do the 5 first, and then I'll drill down in the 8. The 5 has a west side district, which is the entire west side of the river, with the exception of one little census block that we needed to make the numbers work in Hackberry, having to be attached across the lake to Grand Lake. But otherwise, it is the whole west side. Then there is a district that is all of Lower Cameron on the east side. Cameron, Creole, Grand Chenier, all the way to the Vermilion Parish line towards White Lake. And so that, goes up to the intercoastal. It's very easily defined as this is your Lower Cameron district. Then you have a district, it has to pick up one block up in Grand Lake to square up its numbers, but otherwise it follows that pattern. The other district started in Grand Lake and heads towards Klondike and Lowry, and then you had a Big Lake district and then one more Grand Lake district. So you would have 3 districts kind of in the northeast of the parish out of 5. One would be very much Big Lake, one would be very much Grand Lake, and the other would be kind of Sweet Lake headed over into Klondike and Lowry. So that's what a 5 looks like. And that is within the plus or minus 5%. I think there was a lot of discussion about, hey, we're now the smallest parish. Let's take a look at having that as an option that we can take a look at. So that's what we did there, and that's what that one does. Are there any questions on that one? And then I'll present the 8. Let me just say this generally for the benefit of the public. When you're building these districts, your building blocks, we don't just get to draw them how we want. And the building blocks that we have to use to build them are the census blocks that are determined by the federal government. We have a little bit of a problem in that, particularly in Grand Lake, there are blocks with 300-500 people in them, some of them. And, when you're trying to get to a 700-person target roughly, and your building blocks in a lot of instances are 300 to 500 people, it makes it extremely difficult to do a lot of things. And so the reason the Census Bureau does that is they feel like they have to have physical boundaries so they can tie the population count that comes back to the census to what they're looking at. So you've got to tie it to a canal, a road, something like that. It just can't be an imaginary line in the middle of the marsh. So that gives us some constraints, particularly up in Grand Lake where a lot of the population just follows along the road and you don't have a natural north and south break point to come to. In 2025, there will be an opportunity to message to the Department of Commerce suggestions for the census blocks. I would suggest that we remember to do that because it's going to continue to be a problem that's kind of a little bit difficult to do this, and that there's only so many ways to do it because the building blocks are not real helpful. But anyway, that, I'll present the 8 next, Mr. President, unless there's a question on what I've said so far.
On the 5, is there any other option to divide up the Grand Lake, Big Lake, Sweet Lake area? Can you show like the intercoastal being a boundary and like it used to come across the intercoastal south of 384 and catch more and leave those 2 sections from the intercoastal to Sweet Lake where you make 2 districts there?
You would not be able to create just 2 districts there, I don't think. I think the population, wait, let me make sure I'm following you. So on Big Lake or in Grand Lake?
In Grand Lake.
Oh, in Grand Lake.
From intercoastal, north of 384 to Sweet Lake.
Got it.
Build 2 blocks there. Let Big Lake, like it comes already, it comes across the intercoastal, but underneath 384 go and extend further into.
It depends how many's in each block.
It does depend on how many's in each block. What I would say is, I'll tell you why it's like the way it is, because I think this partially answers your question. If you try to say, let's take Lower Cameron and add Klondike to it, way too many people. Let's take Lower Cameron and add Laurie to it, way too many people. You're looking for a small number of people. And so that particular block that was used there was the kind of the small number of people that worked to appendage down onto Lower Cameron to finish populating that district. As between these two, and I'll go over here, as between these two, the block that Mr. DuPont lives in is a pretty not very populated block. So that kind of up there, this kind of area is not terribly populated when we start counting the blocks. But basically, this is about 150 people. This is about 250 people. This is about 500 people. This is about 400 people. And they're all just one big block. And so, everything above Black Bayou, there's a block. Everything.
I'm talking about from the intercoastal.
Right here.
From the intercoastal, north, from the bridge
right
to Boone's Corner.
And the objective would be it's got what's left over of this district going that way.
Right. Just extend that district over some
Here.
more and combine those two blocks of Grand Lake and Sweet Lake into, there's 3 districts, 3 police juries there, make just 2.
So the area north of 384 here,
right,
up to Gulf Highway would be appendaged onto District 2.
Right.
And the area south of 384, kind of over to Hands Road, would be appendaged onto District 3. I'm going to go back and double check, but I believe that the population differential between this block and that block is probably about 140 people. So you'd have way too many being added to this.
Well, they
if
used
that's what
to,
you
on
need.
the 8th district, it would go all the way to Sweet Lake to come up and catch.
Can you go ahead and go to 8? Well, it just depends how many's in that block that the state sets. So, you just can't divide the block, make the block where you want it.
This block where you live has got about 400 people in it.
And from the intercoastal to the Boone?
Mm-hmm. When they count them up, it's got about 400 people in it because it goes pretty far north. I have to go back and get my computer and check, but it's got a pretty good chunk in it. This one here, I remember is about 150, but I can grab my computer and look. These two were not equivalent to each other. I did do a scenario that flipped them, and it messed my numbers up. Now anything's theoretically possible if we keep at it. And so, we're not voting on the final map. So if y'all want me to keep exploring, I'm happy to keep exploring.
That's my only question about.
These two do not flip by themselves. there would be a knock-on effect if it is possible at all, and I will be happy to check that.
Okay.
Check that out. Okay. All right, now the 8, but I can say they don't just evenly flip, because I did look at that one point.
And what percentage is that?
What's that? Oh, the 5 is, I mean, as far as deviations go, you know, the biggest district's 1173, the smallest district's 1077, so the biggest one's 4 over and the smallest one's 4 under. So you're within the range that the federal government allows. All right. And let me say this for the purposes of continue this discussion. I had, now that we're kind of getting closer to the end, I had a big one made for each of y'all, so y'all can leave here today taking a big one with you if you want to study it, of the 5 and the 8, and you can call and get together up in Lake Charles or Sulphur or something, and go over, you know, switching particular ones if y'all want to keep working on that. But anyway, so y'all each be able to take one, and Katie has a PDF of them if y'all want to have her put them on the website or something like that to get comment and provide it to Jeff or whatever. This is the 8. The 8, again, the principle here was, can we get within the plus or minus 5% to move it beyond any chance of a lawsuit? Because that's what the feedback I got was, y'all wanted to take a stab at, y'all didn't mind crossing the river. And look, let me say the logic of that. Once you cross the river, you should try to get them equal, because the principle that we relied on for them being unequal was the reasons why you don't want to do that. So if you're going to do that, it's kind of like you can't be halfway pregnant. If you're going to do that, you probably should go the whole way and get it right. So this one, the biggest one's at 737, which would be 4.97% over. The smallest one would be at 670, which would be 4.58% under. So the range is within the allowed deviation under the 8 as well. Now what the 8 does, I mean, I think you will see it is not nearly as tight or as clean or cohesive to communities of interest, but it provides more representation per community, you know, if that makes sense. So it would have a Hackberry dominated district that has a little bit more of Hackberry than currently is in Curtis's district. One of his objectives was he'd like as much as Hackberry as he could. So we did that. To populate the Johnson Bayou-based district, you go, you know, into Cameron. The precinct that the school board goes into Cameron, plus a little bit more. I think when we analyzed it, you know, it wasn't quite to School Board Road, but it was, you know, it was headed that way, basically taking one more set of blocks. Not a lot of people, about 50 people. And of course, that's people per census. I mean, as we discussed, they may or may not still be there. But it goes one more block into Cameron. It was still a little bit short doing that. And, you know, the question was what to do about it still being a little bit short. And so it goes into Big Lake. And I will readily admit, it is a little unusual from a representation standpoint to have a district that is Cameron, Johnson Bayou, and a bit of Big Lake. You know, that's a lot of ground to cover. But to make the math work, that's kind of how you do it. And if y'all wanted to take the position, hey, we don't care about the math, we'll risk the lawsuit, you know, you could add this part of Big Lake back. But under the theory of wanting to do this within the safe harbors, there's one census block on Big Lake Island that basically goes along Abear Camp Road, kind of loops back around, and it's got a lot of the camp areas in it, but it's got about 50 people in it. And it's the only way to break up the island. It's the only block that's broken off from the other block. And so there were drafts of the school board map that put this with Hackberry. They ultimately did not do that. We were able to confirm later, you know, that the draft that we had for the meeting when we were here last month was not the final. In the final, they did not cross up there. They crossed down in Cameron, but they did not cross up there.
But they didn't meet their 5%.
They also did not meet the 5%. That is correct. But anyway, this little block of folks up in Big Lake would be along with this little group of folks in Hackberry, this little group of folks in Cameron, and Johnson Bayou. And that would properly populate that district. Then you've got what's left of Cameron, Creole, and the principle of this versus what may have been what we looked at before is when I had them input the precinct lines on here, we realized there were departures from the precinct lines really for no good reason. You know, there was District 4 and District 5, you know, would cross the precinct lines back and forth in 3 or 4 different places. You know, that makes your election administration expense more expensive. It's probably confusing to the voters because that means they got to show up at a precinct and get locked out, and part of them get sent one way and part of them get sent the other. So in an effort to minimize this, and having discussed it with Thomas and Scott, this adheres down there more to the precinct lines. Now, there's one block, you know, just below the Creole Highway that, in just one little block of area where we had to take District 4 into the other precinct, but just to get the numbers right. But otherwise, we conform to the precinct lines. That these precincts have been in effect for 20 years. That's another issue. In January of 24, we can amend the precincts. So like this little block could get added to this precinct so that you solve that precinct split problem. And up here, you can do some of the same thing. In January of 24, the precinct freezes over, and you'll be able to really easily realign the precincts to your districts to make it where election administration from y'all's districts is very easy to administer. But anyway, so here we conform that down here. That's really the only change down here. My understanding is those two guys, you know, from separate discussions are good with that. That conforming of the precincts down there left District 5 just a little bit short. So to kind of get its people and square it up, it comes up 27, you know, basically to Hackett's, and then, you know, it takes the stuff that, now this block is not very many people. It's not the main block of people along 384. It's just the people that front 27 up here. So, and then it goes kind of towards Grangerville to kind of square off the rest of the population.
Does that take in Grangerville?
It does. So to square off the rest of the population. And so that's what that one does. Then District 7, which is the Big Lake District, other than losing that little piece up there above Bear Camp Road that we talked about, it basically stays the same. 8 stays the same. 6 stays the same. And 3 had a little bit of tweaking. Its core stays the same, but it had a little bit of tweaking to make all the math work again. It kind of goes over towards 27. It also picks up this block. We studied it hard. Technically, it's 3 people, and it helped us get our numbers right. But we think there may be some farm workers on the Sweet Lake property. We don't think we couldn't find any voters here. Yeah, right.
The house is gone.
Right. But anyway, so basically it takes District 3 over to 27 would be a way to basically describe it. Plus those 3 people that we don't believe are there on the Sweet Lake farm. But anyway, that's the 8. Be happy to answer any questions about that. And as I said, there's 8 copies of each here for you guys. I'm going to leave the big board with Katie, and Katie and Tom have a PDF that they can share with you guys or put on the website for comment or whatever y'all decide to do. The action from here on out would be, this is one of the public hearings that's required by the state statute. If y'all want, I have October 13th to come back and visit with y'all. Technically, I believe, because they're separate called meetings, you could have the second public hearing at your morning meeting on October 13th, and then y'all could vote at the voting meeting on the ordinance. Now we'll have to put it in ordinance form, so if y'all want to give me some direction about, you know, which way we're going, that'd be maybe helpful, because I could go ahead and start writing up the ordinance. But it's one of those things that it doesn't have to be because, you know, we can write it up both ways if y'all want.
I think
We'd have to introduce an ordinance today, or excuse me, we have to have the public hearing today, and then we'll introduce and adopt the ordinance in October.
Right. I just want to get it over with.
I think he's right up for, I think, majority of us, eight members. I'm speaking.
Ask you something, Kate. Okay, so you got, Johnson Bayou, you got part of them in Hackberry, you got part of them in, Big Lake, and you have part of them in Cameron. So when it comes to an election, does those individuals have to go to Johnson Bayou?
Oh, no, definitely not, definitely not. They'd vote in their own precinct. It would just be, you'd have a lockout box. So when you come into the precinct for the island, they'd have one machine over in the corner for these 50 folks, and they direct them to that machine. Everybody else.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And like where Lee's, Lee's accent, sometimes I used to be under the impression that there was a levee or a road that you could use that, but you can't because the blocks is already set, right?
Correct.
So you might have to kind of draw them out for them and then you'll know how many's in each block. Lee,
In
you
the
know where you
break
can
between the
understand.
meeting, I can pull my computer out and we can do it exactly.
Well, I'm not for,
So we need to.
I was just questioning.
Right.
If you can change, could that be changed or tweaked if the jury decides to go with 5?
Oh, absolutely, it can.
That's all that's why I was asking.
To the extent that the blocks and the population allow. And it is very hard in Grand Lake, I will tell you. There might be one other thing that works, maybe, but it's not like there's a big universe of options. I guess I'll put it that way.
I'm in favor of 8, but
I'm not.
How you feel, Mr. Butch? 8. Sonny? 5. What you want, Joe? 5. Curtis? So that's 8 then. We all want, but the majority wants 8.
Well, I think
You
I've
still
got,
have to go through the process.
Yeah,
You can't just say we're gonna vote for it right now.
I think that if somebody wants to do a motion, y'all could do a motion to direct me how to introduce the ordinance, but I think otherwise.
Yeah, we gotta have something for next meeting to vote on, so we gotta kind of.
I'm happy to write it up both ways if y'all prefer to write it up both ways, but if y'all want to vote to direct me to do it one way, that's fine. If y'all want me to do it both ways, that's also fine. I just,
If you need if you need to poll us, I mean, majority's 8.
Yeah, we want 8.
Let's go down for public comment. I think we'll wait and let the public decide what they would like to
well,
see.
it seems
We're
like
gonna
there's
decide.
well, it's not that hard for me to write them up both. I mean, so however y'all want to do it, but if y'all, I think the way we had it on the agenda was public hearing and receive comments. So I think at this stage, Mr. President, because this is technically a public hearing, we would have to invite, is there any comment from the public?
Which is what we're doing today.
But we can go ahead and write them, if you're gonna write them up, we wanna vote next month. Okay, so we can write them up, both, if you wanna write both of them up, it don't make me no difference.
If we have any public comment, we would appreciate it. Anybody out there in the parish, if you have any public comment, please, contact your, right? Or contact the office here. All right? We need your name. If you have a public comment, we need to know about it, okay? If you don't, that's fine.
And I still want to get with you on that 5, and see what can be done on that.
One quick last question. Neither one of these can be challenged as far as number of votes.
That's correct. But, Mr. President, I know you invited them to make their comment, but I think technically, just to be compliant, I think we invite them at this meeting if they have any right now, just to kind of put that on the record. I'm sure there's probably not any, but just to put that on the record. So it's compliant that this was a public hearing.
And my concern is not so much making a big change from 5 to 8, as much as it is that the school board doesn't set in place 8. And we're gonna put 5, and then more problems may arise for one or the other to be challenged.
That happened the last time.
Because we're different.
We got sued.
But last time.
We was out of compliance.
We was out of compliance last time.
This time we ain't compliant.
We was out of compliance.
Ms. Fogg, I would say that whichever way y'all go, y'all's plan would not be subject to, but it is correct that it would highlight that their plan is not within the numbers. And so it could open up.
We're one big parish. We got people in schools the same as we got people on the roads we take care of. So I mean, I don't wanna go and obstruct or put in cause a problem for the school board. I mean, that, you know, that's just my thoughts.
Is that ready to vote next meeting?
Yep. It will be ready to vote next
Comments?
Just,
I'm fixing to ask a comment. When y'all through, everybody knows how the vote's gonna go, so anybody have any comments? I guess not. All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to review the agenda.
Miles,
Yes, sir.
on number 8, under permits, B, and then do on Hollow Beach. Why is that, why are we seeing that if that's just a house pad, or is there something special about this permit?
Think
I don't have it in front of me. Gary
right now,
gives
say
me
something.
these out, but It's probably one of them properties, I can quote it directly, but it's probably one of them properties, it's either gonna be extreme to the east, or it's gonna be one of them that got washed out, where all the sand is on the front, the road before the beach, in between, those big holes, that's all considered wetland now.
But that, we can give them our permit, but they still have to get their delineations, am I correct in that?
Well, if there's wetlands involved, we still gotta delineate the wetlands with them too. But the Corps still involved with this permit also.
Okay, so you're gonna look at that before the voting meeting? I mean,
I'll pull it up while we get it.
I'm gonna vote for it, I'm just saying, I wanna know what it's about, why we're seeing this one, and we don't see all of them from Hollow Beach. I don't see all of them, I just see, figured there was something special about this.
Well, there was some stuff moved here the other day, some sand on some different lots, and, the state actually got involved and sent somebody down and, identified some of the wetland areas. It could have been one of those properties. I'll pull it for you and let you.
Okay.
And see where it's at, that way you know.
This all for you, all this
Yeah.
fire,
Yeah.
that's some stuff. you
Yeah, that's,
want to-
we had to create a fire board for Hackberry, because they had actually never had one.
Oh.
So we created it and,
That's just
held a meeting and, we just needed to adopt what,
Y'all never had a fire board?
no. There's always firemen. It never was. Well, the way it reads, you're supposed to have, non-firemen on the board.
Tim, is that right?
You're supposed to have,
so this just corrects it.
yeah. It just,
We got
we
firemen
just
on
made,
board.
we just made a board
Well,
of ex-firemen. It depends how it
have you looked at this,
depends
Tom?
on how it's rolled up.
It's all,
Is that what all that red stuff y'all been,
Yeah.
all y'all been doing?
Yeah.
On, Curtis, if you don't mind, on 18, we had a hospital board meeting the other night, and, we have some members here with us. We're gonna, we're gonna need a temporary variance. All we've been having for 2 years is a tent over there. And we're gonna put the hospital board, I don't know if they wanna speak on it, Ms. Stephanie or Ms. Timmy, or Mr. Tom, on a temporary hospital, building. Maybe can Mr. Tom explain it? Get rid of that tent and put it.
A week or so ago, the hospital board met. The board approved a temporary building instead of a tent. Since it's gonna be a temporary building and they, are obviously moving towards a permanent hospital, the board will be requesting a variance. The board needs to go to the permit department first, which I don't think has happened. So they'll make application to the permit department. Department will make the appropriate decision. If the decision is that either they don't qualify for a permit or they need a variance, then of course, then that will come to you for your consideration, and we hope to get that done between now and the next meeting.
I think the portable trailer is gonna have the X-ray machine maybe in it.
We'll have all that for you. I do not know. All I
Timmy
know
said,
is
yeah,
that
I think the
They
portable
actually
trailer
filled out
have
the variance request form and submitted it to us.
Okay.
Now, there's more information that we need, but we got this part of it.
Yeah, so we're starting the process. By the next meeting, we hope to bring, if they don't qualify through like anybody else, they will have to come to you for that variance, but we needed to go through the permit department, go through the proper policy and procedures. We'll bring it, if necessary, bring it to you next month, and give you more details, explain exactly what will be there and how long and things of that nature.
But I think as long as you building something, it's pretty much legal, you can do that, Miles? You can put a temporary, I know that we can put something on the ground as we building a house, for so long.
We will go through the proper policies and procedures and channels, and if necessary, bring it to you. I will at that point in time ask if necessary to grant the temporary variance, because again, it will be temporary, and because they will be building a new hospital. So we have to go that route. We will be before you on October 12th, whatever your meeting is, we're making that request if necessary. Don't even know if we need to come to you, sir.
So you want us to table it? You
So
want
we
us
don't,
to
oh, no,
table it?
are we making that
It's on
decision now?
today.
Yeah, it's on here right
It's
now,
on
Tom.
today.
You have what you need?
They give me the request form, Tom, they just need like a health unit and fire marshal on the building and the windows, I need the structural drawings on the
Can we do
building.
it pending then?
I'm pending, I'm missing about.
That's why I was asking Miles
But
if
it actually
it's
filled out
legal.
the request.
I misunderstood. Yeah, if you want to grant the variance conditioned upon the information being provided, with what you have now, and it's on your agenda, yeah.
Okay.
We can do it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know.
That's why I was asking Miles.
We're just gonna need the other stuff to do the permit.
Right.
Now, we could vote on the variance today, but the other stuff, like the structural, the plans for the building and all that, it's got, and reason what you was bringing up, we do temporary during construction for a work shack or something. This ain't a work shack, it's
Okay.
gonna be a hospital.
A lot of it's gonna be on trailers.
Temporary.
It's basically portable building, the actual ER, CAT scan will be a trailer that can be hauled out.
Couldn't everything be where you can haul it out?
No, not to actually have an ER that's required to.
You see where I run a problem with these variances is, we ask the public to do all this stuff, then we here wanna say, well, yeah, we don't have to do that.
Oh, this
We
is
need to
temporary.
make,
It's
we
temporary.
need to make every opportunity to follow, the parish
That's what we
needs
are,
to
too.
make every
That's
opportunity
what we are.
to follow their own policies
Mr. Fault, let me
that
give you a little more background.
oppose to their public.
Give you a little more background. We've all been about this almost in 2 years. We've all been in recovery, so forth and so on. The hospital anticipated they actually had an emergency declaration some 14 months ago to bypass the public bid law so they could go directly into contract with a contractor to build their hospital because of the emergency community need. They got into that process, discovered only recently, a few months ago, that, again, electrical, some other
Cost.
mechanical and electrical was going to increase the cost significantly, so forth and so on, by millions and millions. So it changed their approach to what are we gonna rebuild, what are we gonna do, so they had to regroup. That has caused some delays, and again, they would have gone, had they known of these increased costs a year ago, they probably would have taken a different route, and might have something there by now. But under the circumstances, they've had to, so that's why there's some delays, some problems, why we don't have a hospital under construction yet. They are going to build a new structure that meets all of the requirements, elevation, building code, so forth and so on. For now, this is a temporary building, a public need, medical emergency room. I would suggest that you all, and you may have, some of you may have the opinion that there is no justifiable variance. Mr. Falk, I get your point that we're asking the public, the common everyday homeowner, to comply with all of the rules, and we do, and we enforce when they don't. But there are exceptions to most every rule, I think, has always been my position of law, morals, ethics, so forth and so on. This is a decision for the board to make. Does this circumstance, in this particular case, an emergency room hospital for the public in South Cameron justify a temporary variance? That's your decision in this case. And Ms. Falk, if you think there are no exceptions, you can vote as you want, because you need to vote for the people that you represent. But that's just the position of the hospital, is that this is a temporary variance. They do intend to comply. That's one of the reasons that we don't have a hospital in construction, because they want to and have to comply with all of these rules and regulations. But they will.
But what the point I was making was a response to his comment. He said, well, we're gonna have the x-ray room on a trailer we can haul out. Well, why can't you have the other parts of it on a trailer you can haul out?
There are some.
I'm just saying that we need to make sure we make the steps. When it's police jury or the hospital boards, all our boards need to make the steps to make that if they can.
Yeah, and so that's what they are doing. To the extent that they can provide these services within a structure that they can hook up and haul out, they are. For instance, these X-ray, MRI, these diagnostic machines that they can take off the premises. For the sake of an emergency room, to qualify for an emergency room, they cannot put it on wheels. They can't be on a trailer.
That's a state law.
It's health and human regulations. I mean, they're not, health and hospital regulations, kind of like code of federal regulations, but we have state regulations. So to the extent that they can, within the state regulations, provide those services in a tractor trailer that they can pull out, they are. But for that structure of an ER room, they have to have something more permanent, and that's the variance, just that particular, and again, it will be temporary. It is not we're not asking for a variance to build the hospital below elevation.
We don't want to do that.
That's not what we're asking for. We're just saying, they did not expect to be in a tent for 2 years. Tried to give you a little bit of background of why they still are, but they've decided because of the circumstances and the increased costs and what they've got to do, it's just better for the public if they can provide a little more structure than a tent.
Will the hospital board be coming to Axis make that permanent, you think?
No, I didn't want to speak for the board. No, sir.
Absolutely not.
No, they are in the part of the meeting was they authorized filing suit. We're trying to get more money for them pursuant to the litigation, so they'll have enough funds to build. Now, we are in discussion, there's some discussion of what's the rebuild gonna look like. Is it gonna be a repair, or rebuild? And that's engineers, architects, advice of experts to the board, and the board will make the decision. But their intention absolutely is to put a hospital back in place that meets all of the building elevation codes.
Wendell's on, I went to call, so he can add.
Good morning, Wendell Piper with HCA. So I think Mr. Tom is absolutely right, and he explained it very well. So what we're trying to do, we had to go to FEMA to get approval to put the temporary hospital there. They have blessed that. Mr. Tim and the board, they had to go to LDH, Louisiana Department of Hospitals, to get approval for the size that we need. This will not be on grade. This will be elevated about 2 to 3 feet in the air. But like Mr. Tim and Tom said, that this is temporary. This is not the permanent hospital. We will not come back to you about a variance. We're working and we're rebuilding the hospital. But for a temporary solution, the tent is out there, but we want to put a better ER facility that's gonna have CT equipment, emergency room, 2-bedroom hospital, temporary. We do need the variance, but the permanent reconstruction is underway. We have plans for that, and it's moving great. But we do have an opportunity here where we can have the temporary facility there on site.
I might add to y'all too that at the meeting the other night, the hospital had like a $24 million insurance policy, only collected like us $4 million. So they hired, on contingency or whatever it is, Bud Brookhouse and Keith to try to get them some funds like they've helped us get funds. So that's another thing to help also to be able to offset the cost of everything, with things that are. But no, definitely it's gonna be above base flood elevation, not like it is now. It's gonna, at the time it might have been, but it wasn't near high enough. You know, so it needs to be like an ambulance system, the ambulance house or whatever.
We gotta fight hard to make sure we get permanent things down here.
Oh, it's gotta be built like this to make it
You
last.
do temporary stuff and then you pass it down the road and you, first thing you know, you make it permanent and it's still just a temporary thing.
Oh, no, it's
Let
gonna
me
be
tell you
right.
something.
And let me just say this, we're fighting for the temporary hospital because the tent situation is really not.
It's nasty.
Right, it is not an emergency room, sir, it is not.
No,
So
what I'm saying is y'all missing the point, I think. What I'm saying is, I think the federal government don't want us here in the lower part of this parish. So we need to put we need to not put temporary, we need to put permanent stuff down. And I
Yeah,
will make sure that that's gonna
We're
get
gonna
done.
put permanent, but right now, for life-saving abilities, a hospital is a critical facility. It's a, I don't have to preach what the hospital can do. So we do need some enhanced services over there right now that the tent just cannot provide.
I wanted to say one thing, like at the meeting the other night, I know one thing, Ms. Stephanie's a new board member, and we also have Nikki Keefe as a new board member with Tim, and Tim's been there a long time. But I know Ms. Stephanie's really, they all pushing to go above what we have to get it up, one way or another, go to either a new facility, or I don't know if we can fix that, elevate that, what's there now, or tear it all out and put something new, smaller but new. And that's gonna be built like this, that's gonna withstand. We don't want anything down here that's gonna be getting flooded.
No, I
you know.
agree.
You know, similar to one like Johnson Bayou has over there, Urgent Care Center, they have, it's all elevated and concrete, and, you know, so.
And Mr. Falk, when we presented this to FEMA to get the approval on it, we had to present it in a 6-month timeframe. So right now, we have approval for a 6-month temporary hospital. And then if we have to revisit it in an additional 6 months, that might be fine. But we are working on the permanent solution. We have plans for that. We're close to an RFP for that in the hospital board. I don't want to take over from Mr. Tim, but we do speak weekly, like he said, and sometimes a little bit more than that. So.
A temporary, I mean, to try to get all that done and built in 6 months is going to stretch it, and you're probably going to need another extension.
Yeah,
but
we just need a little bit more than the tent.
I want to make sure when we done, we get a permanent building.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think, Ms. Stephanie, did you want to mention something, Ms. Stephanie?
Just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, my point, there was a motion to repair the building, just at the elevation that it was. I asked that be tabled. That was my very first meeting. I understand it's taken 2 years for them to get to the point to ask to repair it at the elevation it is now. My point is that, just like you said, we cannot ask residents to elevate if we don't set the example ourselves as a public facility. So my motion to table was to allow the new members, there were 2 of us and there's gonna be 2 more, to visit with the architect and see what's the possibility of building and elevating a smaller structure to the same elevation height that everyone else in that area needs to elevate to. I think that's the right thing to do, and I think it's setting the right example.
I do too. Thank you, Ms. Stephanie.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah, we're still doing that. Item 21, authority to lift higher trees until further notice. I asked Mary to do that. Hope the gentleman agrees with it. I know we just lost 2 more in our maintenance crew.
Now let Shane explain what he wants to do.
Go ahead.
Shane, explain what you want to do.
I got it.
Got 2 from Creo that will be interviewed to move to Grand Lake. 1 will be moved to Grand Lake, and 1 quit in Cameron. So I need to hire 2 for Cameron, Creo area.
So you had one in Grand Lake that quit.
One in Grand Lake quit, one's gonna transfer from down here up there, and then hire two down here.
That's good. Just wanna make sure we.
Go ahead, finish what you hired for, what you wanted to do.
No, I just want to leave it, open for a period of time. I mean, there's no sense in closing it and opening it, closing it and opening it. I just, until we really need to close it, is all I'm saying.
I think Kirk is the main one, I think, when they close, and what's.
I think we ought to, we ought to be notified before we hire anybody in any position.
And we are.
We can leave it open as long as we're notified.
Well, I think the staff understands that. They're not gonna hire anybody, and y'all can speak up if you want to, but I don't think they're gonna hire anybody without, talking to us.
I'm fine with it. I just want to go back to the past where it was.
Yeah, I understand. So, we'll leave it, according to this right here, we're gonna leave it open until further notice and.
Do you
Make
want
sure
it,
that
do you
all-
want the motion to leave it open but notify the jury for advertisements?
Yes, please, thank you.
In a public meeting,
Yes, in this, yes, sir.
in the agenda.
It'll be just like number 22. It would read like that every time.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Mr. President, I have one add-on. Mr. Scooter Trosclair contacted us and asked us to do a resolution of support for some grant funding to extend the Rockefeller Refuge Shoreline Protection Project.
Is this something that they're seeking and gonna,
Yes, sir. It's-
nothing we have to do,
No,
right?
it's something that they're seeking. It would be a grant through NOAA Fisheries, Habitat Conservation, Transformational Habitat Restoration, and Coastal Resilience grant. And it's to extend the project that's already there. It's just to extend it.
Is it
a
the
little
levee,
further.
Mary, or is it the rocks?
It's the rock project.
Okay.
Are you coming east or are you going west?
They're going west, all the way from
Yeah.
Rockefeller where it
West.
ends to, Beach Prom.
To Beach Prom, yeah.
How about that levee, that, don't they build like a 10-foot tall, 20-foot wide?
Rockefeller?
Yeah.
They're restoring the one that was damaged.
Yeah. We need to see about getting some funding to keep going all the way across the parish.
We're working on it.
We're working. So it's just a letter of support, resolution of support.
Oh, okay, all right.
The redistricting, appropriate action, that's gonna be tabled till next month, or?
Okay, on number 23, what you had emailed, it says consideration and take appropriate action on introduction of.
That was all part of the same thing, so that was to give them the option,
Okay.
if they wanted to go ahead and say which plan. So that's, I guess that's why I was confused earlier, because I thought that was under the public hearing also.
So we can vote on it?
I want to do a motion now to say, go draft a plan,
For 5 and 8 or
5
whatever.
or 8, you can do that now.
It's up to y'all,
If you
or we
don't,
can remove it.
However y'all want
You
to.
just remove it because you're not gonna vote till next month anyway, and everybody understands that.
Okay, so we're
think-
gonna remove item 23 from the voting agenda.
Well, we can take action on it if we want it, and still don't have
It's
no,
totally up to
it still don't have no bearing on next month or this month. We still can't take action, and, I mean, still don't.
Still can't take
still-
action till next month.
We can accept the plan. We are,
Right.
we're not, until the.
We're
second-
not bound,
until the
we're not
second public
bound.
Meeting, it won't be official, but we can tell him which map to go ahead and draw the,
Draw
ordinance
up,
up.
yeah.
Leave it on there, Mary.
And what if we vote next month and somebody changed their mind, and he done got the plan drawn up and we all changed our mind? Go the opposite way.
So on this motion,
Draw
we
one
can
on each.
add redistricting ordinance
think
for
I
an
know I'm gonna change
8-member
my mind.
jury and a 5-member jury.
Yeah,
If
so
that's
look,
what y'all want.
Mr. President, members of the jury, where I think this is if y'all want to go ahead and give some direction of, I want y'all to draw X, then I'll just write up the ordinance only as that, and if somebody wants to then ask for an amendment to that ordinance next month, we can write up an amendment to it. If instead y'all want us to write up both of them, we'll write up both of them. If y'all knew and y'all already had an idea of what y'all wanted to do, y'all could go ahead and let me know. But if y'all say, no, we wanna write both of them
I'd
up.
like to do it and be done.
That's okay too, whatever y'all wanna do.
Leave it on there.
It's proper for y'all to do the motion to proceed with the 8 or the 5, in which case the introduction of the ordinance will be in that format. Or it would be proper for y'all to tell me to introduce both of them, whatever y'all want.
Just leave it on there.
Leave it on there, we'll set it up on.
It is what it is. Anything else?
I just got one question, and I kind of started on with Tom earlier, and that has to do with the Hackberry Fire Protection. And it says, the police jury member would be a voting board member. Is that legal? Is that kosher?
You have some of your boards, you have your president is an official and usually designates somebody. I think even the library board has, your president is a member of the library board, but I think historically they've appointed somebody. It's the president or his.
Yeah, but that's a very quiet board. The only reason I'm asking this question, if I'm sitting on a board and I don't want to have group thinking, you get my drift. But if somebody disagrees with me, wait a minute, I appoint you, I disappoint you. You understand what I'm saying? That's the only part. And Curtis may not do that, but who knows what the next person may do if we put that in.
I won't do that, because I'm gonna have somebody else take my place.
Look, so we asked the Hackberry community and Curtis, and we had a meeting with potential board members and some of the firemen over there about what they wanted their ordinance to look like. And that's where it landed.
So you did have a public meeting and stuff was okay. Is this gonna affect any of the other fire boards?
No, this is particularly the Hackberry
Okay.
only.
Okay.
Just, they never had a board. The board was strictly all, firemen. That was actually firemen at the time.
We discovered that something came up, I don't know what the something was, that prompted us to start looking at the Hackberry Fire Board. We realized that you didn't have an ordinance creating the Hackberry Board like you had your other fire boards. So we took ordinances of fire districts, fire boards, and that's where we started. Hackberry wanted to make some unique provisions such as that, and they did what they did, and we put it in the proper format and advertised, and that's what I understand they wanted, how they wanted it to be.
So that's what the people want, that's what.
As soon as I can find somebody to take my place, it's gonna happen, so.
Yes, you want.
Thank you, Tom.
And I won't be.
Anything else? Anybody got anything out there? Anybody? Going once? Meeting is adjourned.